Hello, grade 11. Welcome to the Life Orientation November examination preparation. So I'm going to take you through this examination preparation session. So bear in mind that the duration of an exam for Life Orientation end of year, it will be 2 hours. Then in terms of the instructions and the information, you complete the front cover of your answer book. I think that is straightforward. Then you rule off after each section and answer all questions provided in the answer booklet provided. So that is the first thing. So I'm going to take you through the first section, which is compulsory. That is section A. You are required to answer all questions in that particular section. All questions are required to be answered. Then various options are provided as possible answers to the following questions. Choose the most correct answer and write only the letter A to D next to the question number 1.1.1 to 1.1.5 in the answer book. For example, 1.1.6b. So, what term refers to the ability to understand and share the feelings of another? So our key terms here is the ability, then to share feelings of another. So that term is known as empathy. It is known as empathy. That is the ability to understand how another individual is feeling and sharing the same feeling with that particular individual. So the correct answer here is empathy, which is highlighted in green. Moving on to 1.1.2, which concept relates to the ability to effectively manage and control one's emotions and reactions in various situations. So someone with emotional intelligence is considered to be able to effectively manage and control one's emotions and reactions in various situations. So that is known as emotional intelligence. So the correct answer or the correct letter there, it will be the letter A. Then 1.1.3, what term describes an unjust treatment or behavior directed at an individual or a group based on factors such as race, gender, or religion? So that is known as discrimination. When you are unfairly treated simply because of your race, your gender, or your religion, that is called discrimination. When it is race, that is racial discrimination, gender, that is gender discrimination, and religion, that is cultural or religious discrimination. Then 1.1.4, in the context of interpersonal. Interpersonal is our key term there. Interpersonal communication. What is the term for a deliberate distortion of information to influence others? So interpersonal communication involves communicating with other people. It involves communicating with other people. So when there is manipulation, so this can be characterized as the deliberate distortion of information to influence others. So that is manipulation. That is known as manipulation. 1.1.5, what is the term for deliberate ending of one's life? So when someone deliberately decides to end his or her life, that is known as suicide. That is known as suicide. That is the voluntary termination of one's life. Moving straight ahead, the next question requires to give one word or term for each of the following descriptions. Write only the word or term next to the question numbers 1.2.1 to 1.2.5 in the answer book. What is the term for a strong and lasting bond between two people characterized by trust, respect, and mutual support? So that is known as an interpersonal relationship. That bond is known as an interpersonal relationship. Interpersonal relationship. So the reason why we are saying it's an interpersonal relationship, it's simply because it involves two people. That's interpersonal between two people, and it is characterized by trust, respect, and mutual support. Which term describes the expectations and behaviors that society considers appropriate for individuals based on what on gender? So the correct term for this one, it is known as gender norms. These are known as gender norms. That is the correct answer for 1.2.2. So gender norms, that is the correct answer for this one. So this one is linked to this one, and then this one will be linked to that one. Then, what term refers to an individual's perception of their overall satisfaction and happiness with life circumstances? So, when you have a general overall satisfaction with life circumstances, that is known as well-being. So that is known as well-being. This is known as well-being. Then 1.2.4, which psychological process involves adjusting one's own behavior or attitudes to match those of a group or a society, often due to social pressure. So that kind of psychological process is known as conformity. That kind of behavior is known as conformity. Then 1.2.5, what term refers to the ability to make fair and unbiased decisions. So when you are able to make fair and unbiased decisions, you actually have what we call ethics. You can distinguish between the good and the what and the bad. So the ability to make fair and unbiased decisions is known as ethics. Then question 1.3. We are now on 1.3. Provide 2 ways to research higher education options. So when you are looking for higher education options, when you are looking for tertiary institutions, which can be universities or which can be colleges, which can be TVET colleges, which you need to further your own education, you can do the following things. So the first one, if you want to research, you start by attending open days. Various institutions have different open days in which they showcase what courses they do have to offer, the degree programs which they do have to offer. So the first thing is attending open days. Attending open days. So as you attend open days, you will be accessing information which gives you an insight on what is required for various programs and also the application process. Then you can visit websites. So the second point is that you can actually visit or browse websites of institutions. Visit web sites. That is another way of obtaining information. You can visit their website. Then you can conduct a web search on the pros and cons of each option. Conduct a web search on the cons and the pros of each option. So you research online what feedback has been given on the advantages of enrolling in a particular institution and what are the disadvantages of enrolling in that institution. So attend open days, visit websites, conduct web research on the cons and the pros of each option. Then 1.3.2, critically discuss 2 important functions of technical and vocational training colleges in South Africa. So TVET colleges, that is the abbreviation, they have a very, very critical role which they play in society. All right, so they bridge the gap. TVET colleges provide artisanal skills. They provide artisanal skills to graduates. They provide artisanal skills to graduates which can be used in various industries. They provide artisanal skills which can be used in various industries, such as the mining industry, the construction industries, the manufacturing industries, which contributes to national development. So they produce engineers, they produce welders, they produce plumbers, which contribute to national development or to economic development. So the first thing is the provision of artisanal skills. Artisanal skills, we are talking about practical skills, which enable people to actually manufacture things, to actually complete projects. So in addition to that, TVET colleges empower with entrepreneurial skills. Entrepreneurial skills. They give people entrepreneurial skills which can enable them to be able to start their own businesses. So they provide skills for entrepreneurship, which is good for national development. Now, 1.4 says, study the image below and answer the questions that follow. So Alisa did not, Alisa didn't meet this man at school or at the mall. She met him on Tinder, the location-based dating app that lets you swipe right for like and left for pass. So this is adapted from a website called teenvogue.com, accessed on 5 March 2022. State 2 negative consequences of teenagers being exposed to adults on apps like Tinder. So this is negative consequences because this leads to being exposed to adults results in the risk of online predation. It results in the risk of online predation. Why do we say that? You find that untrustworthy adults may exploit the vulnerability and the naivety of teenagers engaging in predatory behavior. They might try to manipulate or even coerce teenagers into sharing personal information, explicit content, or meeting in person for harmful purposes. So this is actually a bad practice. Then in addition to that, we can also say that some of the negative consequences would include cyberbullying. Bullying. So I'm going to explain how this takes place. So negative interactions on dating apps can also lead to cyberbullying. Untrustworthy adults may engage in harassment or spread rumors about teenagers, causing significant harm to their self-esteem together with their mental well-being or mental health. In addition to that, you can also list points such as emotional distress. This can result in emotional distress. So in terms of emotional distress, let me clarify how that takes place. Interactions with untrusting adults can lead to emotional distress for teenagers. They may experience feelings of betrayal, they may experience feelings of confusion or humiliation when they discover they have been deceived. So all these are the negative consequences. Then also you can include things like identity theft and also private concerns, identity theft and privacy concerns. So untrusty individuals may attempt to steal personal information, or they may engage in identity theft, putting teenagers at risk of fraud and other various cyber crimes. So these are the negative consequences. These are the negative consequences. It exposes the young adults to online predation. There is cyberbullying, emotional distress, and there is also identity theft and privacy consent. Then also you can include inappropriate content as well there. Now moving on to the next question. The next question reads, briefly define the term risky behavior. Briefly define the term risky behavior. So when we are talking about risky behavior, we are talking about we are talking about behavior which exposes young people, behavior which exposes young people to various hazards. This is the behavior which exposes young people to various hazards. So it exposes young people to various dangers. So those dangers, they actually endanger the lives of young people, hence the term risky behavior. So these are behaviors which actually expose young adults or young people to various hazards. So that is what we call risky behavior. So moving on to the next one, suggest one way in which teenagers can keep themselves safe when they meet people online. So when teenagers meet people online, they can use the following. They can use the following methods. They can use the following methods to protect themselves when they meet. They do background checks, conduct background checks, of people whom you meet online, So conduct background checks of people whom you meet online. Then in addition to that, you can say when you meet people online, you can also share plans with a trusted person. You're supposed only to share. Do not divulge personal information. So you must stay away from divulging personal information. Then in addition to that, if you decide to meet up with that person, these are the recommended strategies which you can use. You must choose to meet, choose a public meeting or a place. You must opt for a meeting in a well-populated public location, such as a coffee shop, mall, or park. Public places provide safety through visibility and access to assistance where you need it in the event of emergency. Then you must only share plans with a trusted person. Inform a trusted friend or a family member about the meeting details, including the location, date, and time. Share the person's contact information and a photo if possible. Then you must, or you are encouraged to meet during daylight hours only. Whenever possible, schedule meetings during daylight hours. Daylight hours offer better visibility. You can easily be seen and generally safer atmosphere compared to nighttime meetings. So these are the suggested answers for the first question. Then just to briefly touch on back on risky behavior. So examples also of risky behavior include the following things. Drug and alcohol abuse is also considered to be risky behavior. Drug and alcohol abuse, these are examples of risky behavior. Drug and alcohol abuse. Then in addition to that, we can also talk about things such as unhealthy eating habits, violence and aggression, unsafe sexual practices. Peer pressure can result in people engaging in such risky behavior. So moving on to section B, which is where we find question 2. And the instruction says, answer all questions in this section, write your answers in full sentences. So let's bear in mind this key term, answer all, write your answers in full sentences. So full sentences are required for this particular section. So question 2, read the extracts below and answer the questions that follow. So it was extracted from SABC 2021. Clearly concede police need to be trained to understand the seriousness of gender-based violence, GBV. Gender-based violence, GBV. Police Minister Becky Cele has accepted that some police officers need to be trained to fully understand the seriousness of gender-based violence, which is also known as GBV. Cele intends to open a unit that will specifically deal with the crime and has sent out a strong warning to police officers that subjected survivors of GBV to secondary trauma that they will face serious consequences. We are developing the program of having dedicated members of the South African Police Services who focus on GBV because it is difficult to find anybody that understands the seriousness of the matter. But if we train them and we keep them dedicated to this unit to look after those people, we will know that once they gain experience, they will also develop empathy and become sympathetic. Explain the concept of gender-based violence and provide 3 examples of actions that fall under this category. So basically, gender-based violence gender-based violence can be referred to as any harmful physical, emotional, or psychological actions or threats directed at an individual or group of people based on their gender. So gender, it refers to GBV, refers to any harmful physical, emotional, or psychological actions or threats directed at an individual or group based on their gender. It can be directed at an individual, it can be directed as a group based on their gender. So this can be done or directed at a group based on their on their gender. So this type of violence is rooted in unequal power dynamics. It comes from unequal power dynamics. So examples now, I'm going to give you examples, e.g. sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is considered to be GBV. Then we also have domestic violence. Domestic or physical violence, for that matter. Domestic or physical violence. Then we also have things like emotional abuse. Then we also have things like psychological abuse there. All those are examples of gender-based violence. Now, 2.2, state one key reason why gender-based violence continues to be a significant issue in South Africa. So why does it remain a significant issue in South Africa? So there are various reasons why gender-based violence is entrenched within South African society. So some of this, it stems from historical experiences which people have experienced. All right, so state one key reason why gender-based violence continues to be a significant issue in South Africa. So there are so many things. Like I said, it stems from history. So the first thing is that South Africa is a patriarchal culture. Patriarchal culture. What do you mean by that? All right, South Africa, like many societies, is a deeply entrenched patriarchal culture where traditional gender roles and norms often perpetuate unequal power dynamics. These norms may tolerate or even condone violence against women and girls, making it challenging to break the cycle of gender-based violence. So in simple form, I can say that South Africa is certain certain cultural practices which promote or perpetuate gender inequality. So it is rooted in the culture. So there are several cultural practices which promote or perpetuate gender-based violence. For example, there are some societies who believe that the use of violence is actually proves that someone is what you call it is much more powerful, is much more manly. Yes, so there are what you call it certain cultures which promote gender-based violence. In addition to that, this results in in an unending cycle of gender-based violence. Then, in addition to this, you can also talk about things such as high levels of inequality and poverty. That is a major contributing factor in South Africa. South Africa faces significant socio-economic challenges, including high levels of inequality and poverty. These conditions can actually worsen gender-based violence, as individuals in vulnerable situations may lack the resources and support needed to escape their abusive relationship. You find that there are several women, perhaps, and children who depend on abusers for economic survival. So economic dependence on abusive partners can actually trap victims in violent situations. So the unequal, the high levels of inequality and poverty are a major contributing factor to gender-based violence. Then the next question reads, states, okay, we have handled that. Explain a strategy discuss two potential physical and emotional consequences that victims of gender-based violence might experience. Some victims of gender-based violence might experience the following things. Some, we can start with, they might experience, so they need two potential physical and emotional circumstances. So the first one, victims might suffer from injuries, from physical injuries. They might suffer from physical injuries, that is getting injured. They might suffer from physical injuries. That is the first thing. Victims might suffer physical injuries. Then in addition to that, victims might suffer from loss of life. Some people have actually died simply because of loss of life through GBV. It results in loss of life. In addition to that, on a psychological level, it results in things such as loss of self-esteem, It results in loss of self-esteem. Then it also results in depression and anxiety. Then it can also lead to things like stroke, heart failure. So all those are negative impacts which you can get through being a victim of domestic violence. Now, the next question, identify and explain two strategies that the South African government could implement to address and prevent gender-based violence. So this is 2.4. So there are so many strategies which can be implemented by the government. So the first thing, we need to engage the boy child. Engage men and boys in programs such as Not in My Name. Engage men and boys. So develop programs which teach men and boys, programs which teach men and boys about the dangers of GBV. So men and boys, they need to be taught about the dangers of gender-based violence at an early age. So we can start with programs which encourage men and boys to challenge harmful stereotypes. So these programs teaches men and boys The dangers of stereotyping. So it teaches men and boys the dangers of stereotyping. So that is the first strategy which we can use. Then in addition to that, then we can also, provide comprehensive education programs. Comprehensive education programs to the community as a whole, to empower them to fight, report, and act against gender-based violence. To fight, report, and act against GBV. So we can encourage the reporting of cases of GBV that can be done by the community. In addition to that, the government can also enhance the legal framework, strengthen the laws which protect victims of gender-based violence. They can strengthen and enforce existing laws related to gender-based violence, ensuring that the perpetrators face appropriate consequences for their actions. So perpetrators of gender-based violence should actually meet the full might of the law. So instead of them just being acquitted or being given parole, they should be punished accordingly. So you should establish specialized courts and support services for survivors to expedite legal proceedings and provide necessary assistance. Then the government can also engage in community engagement and awareness campaigns. They can launch nationwide awareness programs to change the social norms and attitudes relating to gender-based violence. Then there is also need to engage communities, religious leaders, and influential figures in promoting respect for women's rights and condemning violence. So this needs to be done by the government together with local communities. So there are so many things which the government can actually support with. So those that is question 2.4. Now moving on to 2.5. 2.5, discuss the role of community involvement in combating gender-based violence. Discuss the role of community in combating gender-based violence. Include at least 3 examples on how communities can contribute to reducing the prevalence. So with this one, it's a much more longer question, which I'll take to the what? To them wide what? Role of community in involvement in combating gender-based violence. So I'll write it here, 2.5. The role of the community. The role of community in fighting against gender-based violence. So the role of the community in fighting against GBV. So that is 2.5. So basically, all right, so basically, the community has a very, very big role. So the community could start by establishing community education programs. Establishment of community education programs. You can start by establishing the community education programs to raise awareness about gender-based violence. violence. So the first step is to establish community education programs to raise awareness about gender-based violence. So how does this help? So these programs would involve workshops. These programs would involve workshops, seminars, and awareness campaigns. It involves workshops, seminars, and awareness campaigns. So how does this help now? So we need to qualify this now. So how does this work? All right, the government all right, these campaigns may minimize the incidences of gender-based violence because knowledge is power. So educating people through community education programs might minimize gender-based violence. So it can result in a drop in gender-based violence. But then the next strategy, which can be strategy number 2. Strategy number 2 is strengthening community policing forums. Policing forums in communities. So community protection, policing forums should be strengthened in communities. Why is that important? This enables the community to police members of society who perpetrate. It enables them to police members of society who perpetrate gender-based violence. So this involves reporting, whistleblowing, and reporting. This involves reporting cases of gender-based violence. So the community can actually be involved in the policing of people who promote or who perpetrate gender-based violence. So this all of this, it answers question 2.5. So the main thing is that you must state your point, then you qualify what you call it. You first state your point, then you need to qualify your what your point, then you provide an outcome. So it's basically statement, qualifier, then it should lead to an outcome. How does that help the society? So this brings us to the third question, which is question 3. So back to the question paper. So if you look at the question paper for question 3, study the cartoon and answer the questions that follow. But surely there's an app for this. Vote here. So elections are taking place there. Then, yes, the elections are taking place there. But surely there's an app for this. So define the term election and state 3 reasons why South Africans might decide not to vote in an election. So the first thing, an election is is a formal democratic process of choosing governments officials or politicians. So that is a formal democratic process of choosing government officials or government or political or politicians. So it is a democratic process. Therefore, it is very very important. Some examples of elections, it can be presidential election, MP elections for electing an MP, or even local government elections. So it's a formal process of choosing leaders. It is a formal democratic process of choosing leaders. You can call them government officials or leaders. That is the definition of an election. A formal process of choosing leaders is known or is referred to as an election. Now, the second part of the question says 3 reasons why South African citizens might decide not to vote in an election. So there are various reasons why certain people would decide not to vote in an election. So the first reason is lack of trust. Lack of trust in the process. Lack of trust in the electoral process. There are some people who do not have confidence in the electoral process, so lack of trust in the electoral process. So there's lack of trust in the electoral process. That is the first thing. Then in addition to that, there is what we call decertification, lack of certification of trust of political parties. There are some people who do not even trust the political parties themselves. Lack of trust of political parties and also politicians, because some politicians, they do lie a lot. They misinform the public. Then we also have logistical barriers. So you find that at times people might decide to stay away from elections because of logistical barriers. Barriers that include transport, long queues. So there are some people who would rather stay at home than spend a day in a queue waiting to vote. So logistical barriers. Then there's also what is called voter apathy, is a common reason for non-participation. Some citizens may feel discouraged from the political system and believe that their vote won't make a difference. They may choose not to engage in political processes. That is another common reason why people do not want to engage in elections. All right, moving on to the next part of the question. Explain reasons why voting electronically could encourage more South Africans to vote. Okay, before we go to that one, provide 2 precautions to put in place to ensure that South African citizens can only vote once. 2 precautions which should be put in place. So the first precaution is voter registration. There should be proper voter registration, which is coupled by verification of documents. And voters. So voters should be vetted or they should be verified. Then you can also talk about vote list and cross-checking. Vote list and cross-checking. Vote list and cross-checking is also important. Then explain 2 reasons why voting electronically could encourage more South Africans to vote. So this is 3.3, which I'll try to squeeze in below them. 3.3, why Explain 2 reasons why voting electronically could encourage more South Africans to vote. All right, voting electronically is convenient. Electronically is more convenient since you can vote from anywhere, from the comfort of your home or workplace. So it is actually convenient. You can vote from anywhere, from the comfort of your home or from your workplace. So it reduces e-voting reduces e-voting reduces waiting time in queues. E-voting reduces waiting time in queues. So it actually reduces waiting time. It is faster and provides more accurate results. It is faster and provides more accurate results. So it is faster and provides more accurate results. That's why we encourage e-voting. Now, moving on to 3.4, which is here, critically discuss 3 reasons why it is important for South Africans to vote in national elections. So this one, I'll take it to the whiteboard. So it is important for South Africans to vote in national elections. So 3.4, I'll give it the subheading, the importance of voting in national elections. Of voting in national elections. So the importance of voting in national elections. So elections, it is important to vote in national elections simply because it provides voting. It actually voting results in the public's, members of the public can have a voice and influence. Members of the public can have a voice and influence on government policies. It gives you a voice and an influence on government policies. On government policies, you'd have a voice when it comes to government policies. Your voice can be heard. Then by voting, citizens can influence political landscape. So by voting, ordinary citizens can exercise their power, their influence. So by voting, you're exercising your influence in politics. The moment you vote, it means you're influencing your power in what? In politics. So then, that is the first reason. So another second point is that voting results in the protection of rights and freedoms. Voting results in the protection of rights and freedoms. Then in addition to that, voting protects democracy itself. Voting protects democracy itself. Voting promotes democracy. Then finally, you can say that voting gives voices to the voiceless. It gives voices to marginalized communities, neglected communities, people who do not have access. Voting gives voices to marginalized communities, to people without voices. Without voices. So it gives voices to marginalized community. Then voting finally gives legitimacy to the government. Voting actually gives legitimacy to the government. So that is why it is important. So that is 3.4. So the importance of voting in national elections results in the public having a voice and influence, result in protection of rights and freedoms. It also gives the voices to the voiceless, and it also renders legitimacy to the government. So all those are relevant points which you can include there. Now going to 3.5. Develop two ways that the Independent Electoral Commission of South Africa could ensure that digital voting can take place in a way that does not damage the integrity. So two ways in which the Independent Electoral Commission of South Africa could ensure that digital voting can take place in ways that does not damage the integrity of elections. So for this one, I'll take you back to the whiteboard again, that is 3.5. So 3.5, I would outline it below. 3.5. So there are so many ways in which the electrical board can do that. There are different ways. So they must provide voter education on how to vote digitally. Would empower citizens to make informed choices without making mistakes. It should empower citizens to make informed choices without making technical mistakes. So they should educate, especially the older people in society, that when you are voting digitally, so that when they are voting digitally, they don't make mistakes. They don't end up choosing a leader which they did not have in mind without making technical mistakes. So the first thing is to empower people with knowledge on how to vote digitally. Since it's a new thing, it needs to be what? People need to be empowered. Then the second thing is make what you call it, to ensure transparency, and oversight. All right, then electoral commission should ensure that the process is transparent throughout the voting process. So they should not hide information. The process should be transparent throughout the voting process so that the results can be considered so that the results can be considered to be credible. So that the results can be considered to be credible. All right. Then the Electoral Commission should appoint independent observers to monitor the process. They should appoint individual observers to monitor the process. So they can do that through the appointing of independent observers to monitor the process. So this brings us to 3.5, that is the end of 3.5. Now let's go straight to the fourth question. So all questions on the third question have been answered. Now, section C, answer any two questions in this section. Your responses must consist of paragraphs. Marks will be allocated for responses written in full sentences. So this is very, very important. When you respond, you must write full sentences. So you must write full sentences and also construct paragraphs. Study the image below and answer the questions that follow. How about choosing to protect my right to become a woman? So this is the cartoon which is there. How about choosing to protect my right to become a woman? Then the question reads, construct an essay on abortion. Use the following as a guideline. State 4 reasons why a woman may feel the need to have an abortion. Reasons why a woman can feel the need to perform an abortion. All right, so there are health risks. That is number one, health risks. All right, concerns about the woman's physical health during pregnancy. So the concerns about the woman's health during pregnancy or pre-existing conditions. So a woman can be worried about pre-existing conditions if they are suffering from a particular condition. So they might consider having abortion simply because it might worsen their health, or it might lead to deterioration of their health. So that is the first thing. Then the second point is financial constraints. Financial constraints. Inability to afford costs. Inability to afford costs. Of prenatal care of the child. Inability to afford cost of prenatal care. In addition to that, childbirth and raising a child. It's very, very expensive to raise a child and raising a child. So these are some of the reasons: financial constraints, inability to afford cost and prenatal care, and childbirth and raising the child. Then also the issues such as education. If someone is still in school, education and career goals can be another factor which results in the termination of pregnancy. Then unintended pregnancy also, it can be another factor. The fact that unintended pregnancy, unplanned pregnancy can also be another issue. So these are the reasons: health risk, financial constraints, education and career goals. So they might result in the termination of pregnancy. Now, going straight to the second bullet, we have done this one. Analyze the negative effects of abortions on babies that survive abortions. The negative impact of babies that survive abortion. So the first thing is that it can result in physical health complications. It can result in physical health complications. That is the first thing. It can result in physical health complications, including premature birth, respiratory problems, and developmental delays. That is one thing. Then in addition to that, it might also have an emotional and psychological impact on the survivors of abortion. Emotional and psychological impact, including trauma and feelings of abandonment. Of despair and abandonment. All right, question 5. All right, it would require medical treatment. Medical intervention might be required. Medical intervention might be required in the long run. Might be required as well. All right, now let's go to the next bullet. Critically discuss the importance of the psychological consequences for a teenager who chooses to have an abortion. So when a teenager chooses to have an abortion, they are long-term. So this is question 4. They are long-term impacts which are there. Ne? So the first thing is that this can result in emotional distress. The teenager might feel guilt, guilty, ashamed, and suffer from anxiety. So that is the first thing. So they might feel guilty and they might suffer from anxiety. Then in addition to that, it might, all right, this might interfere with the teenagers' academic All right, this might interfere with the teenager's academic performance, might have an educational impact. Then it might have, there might be psychological consequences as well. So that child would have to deal with psychological consequences. Then relationships can also take a knock. The psychological aftermath may strain relationships with partners. It might strain the relationship with partners, family, and friends. So it might affect the person's relationship with partners, family, as well as friends. So these are all the things which you need to consider for that particular question, which is the last bullet of question 4. Now, moving on to question 5. Study the extract below and answer the question that follows. A strategic approach to social media design can make the difference between whether viewers follow you or keep scrolling. By Orange Crush, we do have an image there of people who are active on social media. Construct an essay on social media awareness. Use the following as a guideline. Excessive use of social media can impact our mental health. Discuss potential negative effects of spending too much on social media. So when you spend too much time on social media, the first thing is reduced productivity there. Reduced productivity. Reduced productivity. Excessive social media. Media consumption. Excessive social media consumption can lead to distractions. You can be distracted from finishing whatever you're supposed to be completing. So reduced productivity, excessive social media consumption leads to distractions. Hence, you become unproductive, both in the workplace and also in the in school or in the academic space. So it results in in distraction. So it also results in impaired sleep patterns. Sleep patterns. Excessive social media results in impaired sleep patterns. Okay. Too much screen time. Screen time. Too much screen time interferes with the body's natural sleep-wake cycle. If you consume too much social media, expose yourself to the blue light, it actually affects your sleep patterns as well. So impaired sleep patterns can be affected. The negative mental health impacts. Too much consumption of social media can result in negative mental health impact. It can result in negative mental health impact. Prolonged use of social media has been linked to increased feelings of anxiety, depression, and loneliness, as it can foster unrealistic comparisons, e.g. cyberbullying and also social isolation. Then in addition to that, there are also security concerns, cybersecurity concerns, concerns through the consumption of too much social media, cybersecurity concerns. If you spend too much time on social media, you might end up sharing personal information on social media platform, which can expose individuals to privacy breaches, identity theft, and even it puts you at risk of cyberbullying. So it can result in oversharing that can also compromise personal security. So you should avoid oversharing. All right. The next question, social media can be a powerful tool in raising awareness about social issues. Choose one social issue which you are passionate about and explain how social media can be effectively utilized. Um, um, how social media can be effectively utilized to bring attention to the issue, provide specific examples. Né? So you can choose any social issue, for example, human rights abuses, or discrimination. You can actually use social media to address this. Human rights abuses or discrimination. How do you do that? Social media, it actually enables rapid dissemination of information. Through social media, you can reach quite a number of people, rapid dissemination of information. The information which you share, it can reach quite a number of people. That is the first step. Then the second way, it also has a visual through the sharing of pictures and other videos and emotional impact. Or photos, videos of human rights abuses, may evoke certain emotions. So through the use of photos and videos, you can evoke social emotions. Then you can also do so through the use of hashtags and viral campaigns. Hashtags and viral campaigns. How do you do that? So hashtags and viral campaigns can turn social media issues into trending topics, drawing widespread attention and encouraging conversations. They serve as a digital rallying points for advocacy and activism. Then also social media can be used for community building. How does that take place? Social media platforms facilitate formation of online communities dedicated to specific social causes. These communities provide a space for like-minded individuals to connect, collaborate, and also organize. Then there is also the global reach. Social media transcends geographical boundaries. It does not have physical geographical boundaries. It can reach different places, enabling awareness campaigns to reach a global audience. This global reach is particularly useful for issues that require international attention, such as climate change or human rights abuses. Then there is also user-generated content. Social media encourages user-generated content, empowering individuals to share their personal experiences and stories related to social issues. These personal narratives can humanize complex problems and foster empathy. So that is how that is done. Then political activism, it can be another thing. Social media can be a catalyst for political activism, allowing citizens to organize protests, to advocate for policy changes and challenge oppressive regimes. So in conclusion, social media serves as a very, very powerful tool for raising awareness of social issues by amplifying voices and disseminating information rapidly and engaging a global audience. It has revolutionized advocacy. So advocacy has changed and activism, making it easier for individuals and organizations to draw attention to important social challenges and drive positive change. All right, then the next question reads, critically discuss the principles of online etiquette that students should practice when engaging on social media platforms. So some of the things which we expect, especially students, to practice when engaging on social media platforms. So I'll write them on a blank page. So let me draw your attention to the blank page. Okay, so this is question 5, bullet, the last bullet. So when people are engaging in social media, they are encouraged to respect and practice civility and be civil. You must respect other users and you must also be civil. What do you mean by being civil? All right, by being civil, you consider other people's what other people before you post. So treat others with respect. That is the first thing. Just in the same way you do when you're interacting with them on a face-to-face basis. So what to avoid? Avoid using offensive language. Avoid using offensive language, hate speech, etc. Must avoid the use of offensive language, personal attacks. So respect and be civil, avoid personal attacks and hate speech. So you must try to, as by all means, to be civil. So the second thing, think before you post. Before you post, you must think carefully before you post. Consider the potential impact of your words. Impact of your words or content. Consider the impact of your word or content. Avoid sharing misleading information. Avoid sharing rumors, unfounded rumors, unverified news. Avoid sharing rumors, unverified news. Then the next thing is that is offer constructive criticism. When you're criticizing people, offer constructive criticism. Then also allow diverse perspectives. Allow different perspectives. Be tolerant of perspective. Be tolerant, actually. Be tolerant of other people's views. Of other people's views. Agree to disagree. All right. Then, in addition to that, be aware of your digital footprint. You must have what we call digital footprints awareness, because you are not as anonymous as you would think. Be mindful of your digital footprint awareness. Simply because remember that your online actions leave a digital footprint. Employers and colleges may review your online presence. So consider how your online activity reflects on your character and your professionalism. So in conclusion, practicing online etiquette is essential for maintaining positive and respectful online interactions. Students should be mindful of their online conduct to create a safer and more inclusive and productive online environment. So we are encouraged to go to behave ourselves when we are on online platforms. All right, so now this takes us to the next part of this particular paper. All right, so the next part will be question 6. We are going to deal straight away with question 6. Study the extract below and answer the question that follows. We are with coronavirus, and let's know about its plan to wipe out humanity. So we do have an image, a cartoon, which is there. That is the coronavirus. Then we also have the media holding cameras, holding microphones. Then we also have the medical personnel also trying to fight against the coronavirus. Construct an essay on the impact of the coronavirus pandemic. Discuss two ways in which the coronavirus has affected interpersonal relationships amongst firms and family. Provide examples to support your answer. All right. The COVID-19 virus, it resulted in quite a number of things, which overall negative. So we do have economic contraction. The economy, it actually contracted. Economic activity, it actually contracted. It led to a significant economic downturn. Resulting in job losses, in profit losses, and job losses. It resulted in profit losses and job losses. This contributed to rising unemployment. This contributed to rising unemployment and the disruption of supply chains. Supply chains. Then on the other side, all right, it resulted in accelerated. It resulted in accelerated digital transformation. The digital space was transformed. Accelerated digital transformation. Digital technology became advanced. Digital technologies became much more advanced. Then it negatively affected the informal sector. The COVID-19 negatively affected informal businesses. It negatively affected informal businesses. So there was more hardships. This resulted in extreme hardships. So it resulted in extreme hardships. Then there were also changes in consumer behavior. Change in consumer behavior. Consumer spending patterns changed with increased demand of certain products, healthcare and home office equipment, reduced spending on non-essential platforms. So all these are ways in which the COVID-19 affected. So in summary, the COVID-19 pandemic had a profound impact on South Africa's economy and businesses, causing economic contraction, job losses, supply chain disruptions, accelerating digital transformation. Then the government support measures played a crucial role in mitigating some of these challenges, but the long-term effects of the COVID-19 pandemic continue to shape business strategies and economic outlooks in society. Then moving on to the second bullet, examine the impact of coronavirus on the economy and business. Choose a specific industry, e.g. tourism and business. So for the purposes of this discussion, I'll choose tourism. I'll choose, I'll choose tourism. So tourism was negatively affected in the sense that through cancellation of flights and travel arrangements, arrangements, cancellation of flights and travel arrangements. Restaurants were closed. Restaurants and resorts were closed. And resorts closed their doors. Then in addition to that, you can also say that, okay, so this is question 6. Hotels shut down and most transport services were suspended. So most transport services were suspended, e.g. train services and others. So all this led to job losses, loss of business, and loss of business income. So that is how it affected people. Then in addition to that, you can also say that people started working remotely. That's another thing which you can include there. So basically, that's how the tourism industry was affected. Now, moving on to evaluate the broader social consequences of the COVID-19. Social. Discuss 4 ways in which the pandemic has influenced various aspects of society. So we are now looking at how it affected society. How did the COVID-19 affect society? COVID-19 and the society. Impact on society. So it affected impact on society. It affected the society in different ways. So the first thing is it's the COVID-19 pandemic resulted in the significant development of remote working. It resulted in the significant development of remote working, whereby people could work remotely. Then it resulted in community resilience, strengthened us as individuals, and solidarity. It united people. It made people to become much more resilient by supporting one another during difficult times. During difficult times, so it encouraged community resilience. Then it also resulted in vaccine hesitance and misinformation. People were hesitating and misinformation. So many things were said about the vaccine. Vaccine hesitance and the spread of misinformation hindered efforts to achieve widespread vaccination, prolonging the pandemic's impact and the risk. Then another thing is that it resulted in social isolation. COVID-19 resulted in social isolated people, spent time away from others. in social isolation. All right, it gave rise to the increase in domestic violence. So it also gave rise to the increase in what? In domestic violence. So these are some of the issues which were happening there. So basically, this brings us to the end of this grade 11 paper discussion. Thank you for being my audience. Try your best to write full sentences when you're answering the essay type of question so that you can get the full marks. So you state your point, then you qualify your point, then you provide the outcome. That is in order to get the maximum number of marks which are possible. So thank you very much for being my audience. Meet you in the next discussion.